featured segment here. Criminalizing Thought, an American College Revolution. And hold on one second, folks. I just now realized something. Before I continue, I should have done this before I did this, but I'm going to turn the microphone off for a second because I need to get some liquid refreshment before I continue this path. Or else it's doom. So that, anybody ever watch Ed Wood, the movie Ed Wood? It's about the awesome director from Hollywood that did Plan 9 from Outer Space. And there's this one scene, and he was a one-take kind of guy. I'm a one-take kind of guy for reasons. And so at one moment, I forget, somebody knocks down one of the tombstone thingies, and it really makes it seem that it looks like it's clearly fake, it's cheesy, and you're like, yeah, you wanna go back and fix this? This is no, it makes it look more real. That's how I view my water breaks. It makes it look more real. That's my Ed Wood moment. It's my tribute to Ed Wood. You could say that this show was entirely inspired by Ed Wood, but then you'd have to deal with that Wolf Pit guy who's the real inspiration for you, the people. You, the people. All right, let's get to this feature. Criminalizing Thought, an American College Revolution. A recent survey conducted by College Fix claims 76% of what they describe as leftist students, and I put that in quotes, believe that some comedy is hate speech. Now, first of all, it should be noted that College Fix is a conservative favoring activist group, so the sourcing from a partisan means we question the data in general, no matter the flavor of the partisan. Second of all, what exactly were the parameters of what exactly is a quote, leftist student? Finally, what do they understand about the ramifications of the acceptance of a concept like hate speech? For some, hate speech might merely be a social label used to socially shame people out of their unorthodoxy. For others, however, hate speech might mean laws with guns pointed. I have to do that visual. I felt like I needed to add that. Pointed at those who dare transgress the laws. And the survey really doesn't provide that nuanced data. The survey itself, commissioned by College Fix and executed by the polling company College Polls, seems pre-cooked to send shock and horror messages to a conservative crowd confirming the villainy of their bitter foe, their reduced other, the leftist. Yet there is truth in this poll, I believe, assuming the polling data itself is factual. This truth is that, in general, the left, the people in the coalition of various vehicles of power we currently identify as left, are finding the use of the management of speech to be a powerful tool that advances their collective preferences from which these vehicles of power in aggregate emerge. At my age, which is over 50, putting me in the imagined or real crosshairs of Coronaville at the time of writing this article, April 1st, 2020, I remember the various shifts in vehicles of power in these coalitions I grew up mostly to understand as simply Democrats and Republicans. And every once in a while, some non-DRR would float across the screen. Insane mad people with utopian fantasies like that, much beloved even to this day. Harry Brown, the perennial libertarian candidate back in the day, in my time. And that is the time, the 70s, the 80s, 90s, so the 20th century AD. Many of the positions the left holds now were then held by the right and vice versa. And this is especially true when it comes to their view of authority and their view of cultural gatekeepers. And this part of the equation tells you all you need to know about why it is that these young leftists, these I had a thought and I was going to share it, and I thought, nope, if I share it, I'll go down a long path. So I'm gonna pull back. So, okay, so let's get back to this. In the 70s and 90s, most of the key sociocultural decisions being made were still largely ranging from center left to far right. And let me break it down to a more elemental level for you. The old guys that owned the power rose from conservative vehicles of power, and they continue to largely protect them. And these guys, they're all dead. And the new owners of power in this land, at least the ones that touch these areas of life, morality, culture, and state authority, now have a decided advantage in all three of these spheres, largely because the owners that make the morality and culture of this land today rose from leftist vehicles of power, and I put that in quotes. And they have no intention of letting these vehicles of power die. And now they could do so at levels never imagined before, with massive, immediate, aggregate data they can feed into AI machines to help them spin the narratives, mold the moralities, the cultures. What's more, this new breed of owners comes from the same families, the same investment groups, the same schools, the same neighborhoods as the new breeds of leaders littered throughout bureaucracy across this country, all of which rose from these same similar leftist vehicles of power. It's their turn to do to the right what the right has been doing to them for the past 50 years or so, or so the story goes in their head. But the story itself is merely a vehicle of power, a moral construct to give themselves permission to demonstrate that the action of one who has monopolistic power is almost always predictable. I mean, throughout human history, these patterns, they're not patterns, they're just aggregate flows is more like what they are. And they'll continue to close the vice on potential competition and restraint every time. When they can, they do. But they need to feel morally superior so they don't think about the pain and death such action causes every time. When they can't, they'll give a moral construct to demonstrate that their lack of ability to finish the job is a reflection of their compassion and their humanity, not their willingness to finish the job. Hate speech is a vehicle of power you choose when you imagine your club holds all the key positions that will reinforce your moralizing away your willingness to destroy the other for thought alone. And the Republicans have their own hate speech, and probably will have again if and when they get the gates again. And their hate speech is called unpatriotic, disloyal, vulgar, pornographic, and for a significant time in my life, I remember the days when the Democrats constantly cried for mercy, as the Republicans are today. That mercy comes in the form of an appeal to the First Amendment, the rights to free speech, rather than a defiant stance on your own preference not to have your head held hostage by factional militants. And that's where I stand. I don't need the First Amendment. That's my principle. That's my right. It's my willingness to say that I will or will not submit. When you say, no, I disagree, I'm going to take militant hold of the thoughts in your head. And then I have to choose. And I'm telling you, I've already chosen. And it's, nope, this is non-negotiable. And I would hope that people would get to that point and not turn to the First Amendment and then have debates about why we should not listen to the First Amendment because racism. Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, this is just a reflection of my preference to own my own head. Nothing more, nothing less. And I don't need an excuse for it. I don't need a moralization for it. I just need the ability to back up my preference. That's it. The round and round of violence and deception will continue as it has for centuries upon centuries in many forms across many cultures and races, but still remarkably similar in its roots. The factions of have versus the factions of have not. And there's so there's gradations and there's all kinds of gradations in between just have and have not. It's not a bipolar world, but at times it has bipolar manifestations. It's never a bipolar world, but it definitely has bipolar manifestations, and that has to do with perception more than reality, even though perception itself is a degree of reality. It in and of itself cannot sustain itself without deviating too far from the script of what we'll ostensibly call reality. The round and round of violence and deception will continue right as it has, right? Oh, so this poll reveals that, surprise, the people in the faction that benefit from shutting off diversion, such that faction largely sets the moral and cultural tone in all the mass media ways one can imagine, and across all the major platforms that media is displayed on like never before in human history. What do you think? What a coincidence. They tend to favor the type of power being granted to corpostates and states alike, just like a good Republican from 1980 who is equally indifferent to your plight as you are now to theirs. There are no good guys in this game, just differently advantaged and disadvantaged factions, more or less fighting to be the last of all time factions standing, which itself is an unobtainable goal. So this is the actual story that I wrote this from Education Views study. 76% of leftist students believe jokes can be hate speech. Excerpt. A recent survey revealed that an overwhelming 76% of leftist students believe that offensive jokes can be considered hate speech. The survey, which was conducted by College Pulse, asked students how they felt about a variety of issues surrounding the intersection of speech and comedy. According to a report by the College Fix, a new survey suggests that 76% of leftist students believe that jokes can be hate speech. The survey revealed that Democratic students think it is appropriate to place restrictions on offensive comedy. Only 30% of Democratic students said they believe that comedians should be given more freedom to be offensive than I'm not going to read the rest of this. That's enough. That's enough. So, I mean, the bottom line is this is the search for a moral understanding, and there is no moral understanding here. This is all just a reflection of the reality of power, as these vehicles of power compete with one another for the winning narrative. That's all this is, and all of it leads to the same predictable patterns, the same churn of life and death. And right now we're going through one of the downturns right now. I think that's enough of that particular story. Oh, when you guys say? When you children say that's enough of that story? Yeah. All right. All right. So we're gonna get to. We got through two stories here to cover, and then we're gonna get to the break here. So let's get to our two focus of the day. These are some light stories. We're gonna get light again, folks. We're gonna get some light into this. So let's kick this off. All right, this is the talk focus. Lucy had a long childhood, like us. The Australopithecus afarensis, known as Lucy. Lucy. You know, I like Lucy. I've never heard anybody called Lucy. I'm living it. The Australopithecus, I can't even say that right now again. I started off bad and I finished bad. Known as Lucy, has long been thought to be distinctly more ape than human. To that end, scientists have deduced Lucy had a brain that was probably more similar to an ape than a human. But how similar? Other clues in measuring her skull case suggested that the brain had to develop over a longer time than perhaps required of brains. Of brains? Okay, I don't know what I was saying there. A brain had to develop over a longer time than perhaps required of of ape's brains. I think I'm missing the word ape. This means that Lucy might have had a long childhood period like we humans do, which suggests she might be more similar to us than we previously imagined. And Lucy, there she is. Type F in the chat for Lucy because she is dead. From SciTech Daily, Lucy had ape-like brain but longer childhood like humans. Brain implants, there's an excerpt. Brain imprints in fossil skulls of the species Australopithecus afarensis, famous for Lucy and the Dika child from Ethiopia, pictured here. Oh my gosh, that wasn't even Lucy. You know what? Type F in chat for Dika child. All right, because she's dead too. Or he, I don't know. You know what? I don't question Dika child. Dika child is. That is what Dika child is. Okay, from Ethiopia, pictured here in frontal, F in chat for Dika child, as shed new light on the evolution of brain growth and organization. Australopithecus afarensis had ape-like brain organization, but prolonged brain growth like humans. Scientists have long been able to measure and analyze the fossil skulls of our ancient ancestors to estimate brain volume and growth. The question of how these ancient brains compare to modern human brains and the brains of our closest primate cousin, the chimpanzee, continues to be a major target of investigation. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Things are never quite as simple as we think they are. Unless we're talking about tic-tac-toe. Tic-tac-toe is as simple as we say it is. Absolutely. Also women. No, I'm just kidding. I kid. My wife would destroy me for that. And justifiably so. Town tax torches town. When the voters of Amelia came together to decide whether to raise taxes by 1% to continue to keep their government in business or dissolve their own government, Amelia said, okay, bye-bye government. But it was a real close vote, with only 68% voting to shut down their government over raising the taxes by 1%. One census tea is strong in these folks, real strong. Oh, I wrote that sentence. I did that. All right, I'm going to move on. I apologize. From Reason.com, this Ohio town dissolved itself over a 1% tax increase. Excerpt. When the Ohio village known as Amelia voted to dissolve its government last year, the New York Times seemed bewildered and a little alarmed. The paper acknowledged that it isn't exactly unprecedented for a municipal... Okay, I'll skip this part. Okay, blah, 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 blah. But it added that these fights usually happen for financial reasons, often because shrinking... Okay, I don't care about that. That sort of conflict is not especially unusual in whatever. Let's get to the money shot. I should have cut off some of this. Dang it. Whatever. I missed some. I missed a few. Michelle Wild Anderson, the same expert who told the Times that cities usually dissolve because of financial problems, lists tax revolts as another recurring reason towns think about disbanding. Granted, most of the tax-oriented dissolution campaigns that she discusses failed. And as the Times eventually mentions, the flashpoint in Amelia wasn't simply a new local income tax. It was the fact that the tax was imposed without public input, along with some plausible complaints that the town was wasting too much of the money it already has. The vote to shutter the government wasn't close. 68%. Dang. 68%. That is a mic drop, folks. That is a mother-loving mic drop is what that is. I'm going to save this for the other side, because I'll get to that. That's a news poem, which we'll get to the news poem after the break, but we're about ready to go on our little break here. This allows me to get up and do some stretching and stuff and him-hawings, but we have some stuff coming up here. We definitely have some stuff that you're going to want to engage in on the other side, and just three of the stories that we have to cover. We have the king has fled the plague with his retinue of concubines. Cooperative male dolphins match the tempo of each other's calls. And the last story that we're going to get to is our dialectical, what unschooling is like to a state school acolyte. That's all on the other side. We're going to go ahead and go to an intermission. I'll see you on the other side, folks. Stay with the show. Stay with the show. Stay with us. You need this. You all need this. Trust me. I'm a doctor.
Love overwhelms me. Love overwhelms me. 'Cause love overwhelms me. Love overwhelms me. 'Cause 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 Love overwhelms me. Love overwhelms me. Love overwhelms me.
It's good to be back. I have missed you all so very much. I have only returned for you, the people. Of course, you know that. I know that. We all know that. What am I saying? Why am I repeating myself? We all understand the score here. All right. Well, we're back. So let's get ready to jump right into the next part, and we're gonna have to start off again. I always want to start off with that warning, and at some point, if I think about it, I'll eventually have the text of the warning printed out and available, like in the show notes of each show. I'll probably do that, and also the little end thing that you'll experience for the first time today. These are just little things to just kind of like let everyone know, dudes, this is just a dude talking. So take that as a dude talking. Everything I say is a dude talking. That's it. That's essentially what the warning is about. So let's get ready to go right back into the show.
Love overwhelms me.
Warning, material about the explicit was part of the mind's method is limited in their capacity to understand the actual reality of power around them, just as you and everyone else in life learn are. What you're about to hear are opinions, suppositions, like gospel or scientific truths, not infallible certainties. Brace yourself for incoming opinions that could confirm or deny your preferential view of the reality of power. Brace yourself for fallible material, fallible opinions, and values reflected, but nonetheless variably firmly held. We do not apologize to anyone who may. We do not apologize for daring to express our views and impressions of what we believe is and what we hope to see. We will keep talking so long as we are able.
And now, Freeqo attempts to talk about the news without freaking out. Yep, that is the plan, ladies and gentlemen. I am pledged to the plan, and the plan is the pledge. And I pledge the plan to do what I pledge to do. And that is to jump back into the universe, to go where no man has ever gone before. I like to say that because I like the hubris of the statement, because it's bound to be an incredible letdown for all of you, and I love you, and I would rather that you experience this letdown right now rather than anything that would be far more lasting. So let this be your lulz letdown, or you may in the end decide, no, bro, it's cool, it's all right, it's okay, it's okay. So here we go. This is the news poem segment. There he is. King. I just call him King, because that is King. At least I hope he is. I think that's the right King. If I'm wrong, I apologize to his family, to his friends, to his relatives, to his dog. If he has a dog. If he doesn't have a dog, he probably has some sort of dog somewhere, maybe. So I'll just apologize just in case. Cats don't care. They don't care. They have no care of what I think. The king has fled the plague with his retinue of concubines. This is the news poem. So, first, now it has been alleged, credibly, sure, why not, that the founder of the House of Saud, the current owners of what is now called Saudi Arabia, which literally means the family Saud's Arabia, literally what it means, Ibn al-Sad once employed 80% of his kingdom's doctors to do one thing, and one thing only. That's it. Make sure his member remained intact and functioning in the fullest sense of those terms. Let me say it more plainly. Dude forced, like most of his country's doctors, to become his penis physicians. I apologize for the sensitive ears. I did use the word. I chose very carefully to use that word instead of another word. I tell you that story because of this latest example of the sexual excess and hubris over those who are placed in the positions where they're treated something not unlike their demigods dominating the people in the land that are all there to reinforce their own demigod status and needs. So Thailand's king has decided the best place to be when his people are dealing with the ongoing threat from Coronaville is to hightail it out of there to Germany with his retinue of penis relievers in tow, his 20 concubines. Now, this move is not unsimilar to what I imagine Ibn al-Sad would make, such should he have found himself in a similar position. Old Ibn would be either right in front of him or right behind him. You can guarantee that. Now in this case, this king dude. Well, I'll give you the details here. I'll give you the deets here. So, news first, poem follows. From Express UK. Thailand's king flees coronavirus lockdown with 20 concubines to hide out in German resort. Excerpt. King Mahu Vajirangla. Man, I should have researched, man. King Maha Vajiralongkorn. King Maha Vajiralongkorn, 67, reportedly booked the entire Grand Hotel Sanabichi with special permission to break the lockdown in the alpine resort town of Garmisch Partenkirchen. Wow, this is so much fun to read. I love it. He is isolating in the resort with 20 concubines and a large team of servants, German tabloid Bild has said. The royal party was deemed a homogeneous group that does not change composition, meaning the hotel could be reclassified as a residential home for the duration of the stay. You know, because money. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, never mind, wait, I thought Germans were woke, right? I thought the German government was woke. How is the German government, a woke government, allowing this sexist, this male chauvinist pig, this patriarchal demon to have this exemption? Why are the Germans giving sanctuary to a misogynist? I mean, somebody's got to say it, please. Just saying. I mean, I have a point, right? I do. Y'all know I do. The royal party was deemed. All right, I already read that. All right, now there we go. All right, this is the part now, folks. Center in, everybody. Gather around. Don't get the kids. As a matter of fact, if you have kids, unless they're under the age of 90, keep them far away. All right. All right. Here goes the news poem. The king has fled the plague with his retinue of concubines. In the early 21st century, during the era of Coronaville, the king of Thailand ran off with his salt and honey to a distant, safe land while his people died. Because I could not suffer the calm. Because I could not bore myself to death. Because I was immune to the quiet. Because the gold in my mouth tasted salty. Because the people are filled with dirty air now. Because I am loved and I cannot die. Because the earth loves my body and needs me to fill it. Because I must be. Because I must possess the salt and the honey of the land from the safety of gilded safe rooms. Because I was never told by anyone that lived. Because I was never told no by anyone that lived. As a matter of fact, both are true. Because they live through me, and I must live in power, and power is possession, and possession is sex. Because I can. Because I can. Because if you were him, you'd be on that plane to Germany, King, with your retinue of please fill me's. Mercy protected you from such self-consumptions. Not your lack of privilege to be so demigodded that you would traverse the planet in search of gold cages where you are kept in, but the reality of loss is kept out, left to the people who equip you, who fund you, who empower you with their worship and their blood. Because I am the king. Because I must. Because you can't do a thing about it. Peasant. Oh. So in case you're wondering, if you see the pause there, the reason is that I'm stopping a recording. So what I'm doing is I'm doing the live stream. I'm recording segments as I go along so that I can create videos from this afterwards that I post on the YouTube channel Action Batza, which I'm going to have to get graphic up for that. But that's the YouTube channel that all of my stuff is basically going on. In all of the personifications that I take, the Freeqo is just one personification of the me. Yeah, I'll leave it at that for now. Why the heck not? Okay, now we're going to get to the fun part of the show, and that's we're going to get into the talk briefs here. So let's hit the record button. All right. There we go. Got the talk briefs going on here. Now, based on the amount of time, I'm probably only going to do only going to do the first story, 2 stories here today in the talk briefs before I get to the last story. Cooperative male dolphins match the tempo of each other's calls from phys.org. Excerpt. Researchers have found evidence of rainforest near the South Pole 90 million years ago, suggesting the climate was exceptionally warm at the time. A team from the UK and Germany discovered forest soil from the Cretaceous period within 900 kilometers of the South Pole. Their analysis of the preserved roots, pollen, and spores showed, wait a second, that the world was, oh my gosh, I have to fix this. Hold on, don't worry. I put in the wrong excerpt here, so we're going to have to go to the story here. Let's do that real quick. Here we go, because we got to figure this out. We got to get this. So when it comes to working together, male dolphins coordinate their behavior just like us. New findings published in the Proceedings of the Royal Scientists B by an international team of researchers from the University of Western Australia and Bristol provide insight into the importance of physical and vocal coordination in alliance-forming animals. In humans, synchronized actions can lead to increased feelings of bonding, foster cooperation, and diminish the perceived threat of rivals. Outside of humans, very few animals coordinate both vocal signs and physical movement when working together. So, there's that. That's pretty awesome. So, dolphins are definitely, there's stuff going on there. It's like, one wonders, if dolphins have the capacity I'll say the way that I look at the world, do they have the capacity to use the imagination to build their own heroic journeys? I'll leave it at that. I'll just say heroic journeys. That's what fundamentally makes humans, as far as I understand things, such as I do, that's what distinctly makes humans a unique organism on the planet, that it has the capacity to use imagination to build their own hero's journeys. I mean, the underlying theory for me is that we have these biochemical, bioelectrical, whatever combination of things within our body that give us these rewards and deterrence from taking or making action. And we don't really fully understand the relationship there, and who's zooming who, the degree to which it is the thought that produces the reaction, or the reaction that produces the thought. And it most assuredly is at least a two-way street. Seems to be mutually shifting influences going on there in various degrees. And if dolphins have that capacity to build these heroic journeys without actually accomplishing them, thus enabling them to get the same, or nearly the same, at least nearly the same type of biochemical, bioelectrical, bio whatever reward that our body gives us when it has, our overall body sense gives us when it has this perception of achieving this heroic journey, whatever it is. And if they have that capacity and they understand their physical limitations that they find themselves within, because ultimately, if you have the type of imagining that we have, you have to understand how incredibly vulnerable you are to the whole world around you that you can't even get past. I don't know that I've ever seen dolphins demonstrate a capacity to build citadels. And they may have an understanding of the usefulness of such things, having seen them on the land, I'm sure. And they may have, you would be like you waking up with no arms or legs. That would be what it would be like, I would think. Of course, no, I mean, they would have, there is a way, there is a possibility that they, even if they have this level of intellect that we have, or even higher, that even with that intellect, that they've managed to create a perception of the world that has sufficiently so far insulated them from the bleak lack of power that they possess and will always possess so long as they exist in that physical form. I'm just saying. Just saying. I'm gonna move on. Goats move into Welsh town empty due to coronavirus. From BuzzFeed News. Excerpt. After 200 years of being mostly confined to Limestone Bluff, a pack of wild cashmere goats, seizing an opportunity presented by Britain's national lockdown in response to the coronavirus, has taken its rightful place as rulers of Llandudno. I said that wrong. Llandudno, a seaside town in northwest Wales. With the town now deserted as residents shelter inside, packs of goats have descended on the picturesque resort town, blocking traffic, grazing on people's hedges, lazing about on the church's green, and strutting by shuttered stops like You Felty Thing, a local boutique that sells all things wool. Photos of the goats have gone viral in recent days after Andrew Stewart, a viral producer with the Manchester Evening News, posted a thread about his encounter with the goats on Twitter. That's pretty cool. And that's what happens, folks, man. We move out and they move back in. So I'm just going to maybe I'll just read a couple headlines here. Whole Foods employees are staging a nationwide sick out. Now this actually, I wanted to cover this on, it was March 31st. I don't know, it wasn't very well. I'll tell you this, it did seem to have an impact on, like there's a lot of stuff in the Whole Foods section of Amazon that I don't buy from Whole Foods, so, but I've noticed a whole ton of stuff was suddenly not available and other things. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are have their own little Amazon methodologies of, I mean, Amazon is one of those gauges now. For the longest time, as I've been observing, which is that, well, I mean, we're at the end of a civilization, and I think many people have rightly recognized this even, I don't know, Well, people have always said it was the end of civilization, but this time maybe they're right. So maybe that's how it's actually turned out to be more than anything. But certainly I myself have been under the assumption that we were coming to the end of the civilization probably around 2003 when I was doing Freedom Through Autonomous Living. It was an early internet venture. It was a weekly news magazine that was created and written on HTML. I wrote HTML code websites in 2003 because I was that much of a neophyte. In 2003, all I could do was write HTML websites. Novasnow.com, and then I let it go, and I inadvertently let it go, and somebody snatched it up, and they still have it, I think. And every once in a while, they're like, "You want to pay for it?" I'm like, "Nah." But anyway, in that time, I recognized for a variety of reasons that the end of civilization was coming. And I even, as years have went on, I increasingly began to look at the world as kind of a corpse, a beautiful corpse in a manner of speaking. We're just waiting for when it would happen. Not believing it was imminent, but I mean, I have been to the point where what's interesting is I began essentially starting to really build up my stocks around October. But it had nothing to do with the coronavirus. It had to do with my understanding that we were on the precipice. And this is, I still think it's true. We are on the precipice within our own government of having a fundamental showdown between competing elements of the government that is going to question the legal, the legitimacy of one of the other's power, and it's not going to be a place where both can coexist afterwards. So this is where I felt we were headed, and I've been feeling that way, and I'm not alone, but I've certainly felt it a lot more since October. So I was already in a sense preparing for this. And my gauge was the sports. Always watch the sports. In any society, especially in the here and now, watch the sports. If you cannot produce high quality sports that fill stadiums at a national level, you are not truly a viable society. You probably have a crappy military. Seriously, I'm dead serious. But also, it's an underlying statement of the ability to hold the fort, so to speak. When sports goes, that's when you know it's all clusters. I remember in the 2008 crash, that's what I did. I watched for the sports, and there was a couple minor sports that actually did kind of end up closing shop, but it never hit the major ones, and so I was starting to stock up a little then. But when the major ones were surviving, I was like, "No, we're good." And that's my major gauge. But now those are gone. So now the next gauge is Amazon. Watch Amazon. When that shuts down, then okay, then you get ready. And I was largely already ready, which had nothing to do with Coronaville. Now, since I've been trying to add a little bit here and there to basically give myself more variety and a little bit more tasties, but nothing intense, just little things. But still, I'm watching. More than anything, I'm watching Amazon. So it's good to see. I'm how long I get my packages, all that. That's kind of important. All right, so I think I'll end this segment here, and we'll get ready for the next. There we go. And you know what? During this break, I don't think I have to turn off the mic. I think I can just. Yummy. I did that for all of you audiophiles out there who literally will say that I committed a hate crime just now, and maybe you're right. I can't really blame you for that. So now we're going to get to the dialectical. So we'll see how this goes, because really I absolutely did not intend on writing anything this long. But it happens. And sometimes my dialecticals might be really short. I don't know what my poems will be like all the time. I don't have a time limit one way or another. I could end up doing a 3-hour show or a 30-minute show. I don't know. So it is what it is. So And now we're going to get ready, and we're going to do the dialectical next. Let's get ready to record the dialectical now. Alrighty then. How are y'all doing out there? We've come to the dialectical. This is the last show, or last story of the day. And this is called What Unschooling is Like to a State School Acolyte. And this is a dialectical. So I want to say in advance, a little caveat here. I make a lot of assumptions about this Washington Post writer. Some of it is a little bit theatrical, a little bit on the, I'll just say a little bit on the theatrical side. I really don't know who this writer is, and I don't want to use their name, and I don't want to do anything to harm this person or bring derision upon this person in any way. So remember, there's a little bit of theater here, but there's a lot of truth, and I'm using him as a foil, as a representative, more than I am really talking about who he might really be. So I'll have that caveat in mind as we go through this. So, what unschooling is like to a state school acolyte. A Washington Post writer, who will remain nameless because I'm a decent human being, as I clearly demonstrated, right, has recently experienced firsthand what he imagines to be an encounter with unschooling. And he's a self-professed advocate for government-run, institutional-styled schools in the Prussian model that Americans overwhelmingly participate in today and have for the last 100 plus years. The Prussian model. That's what we're talking about. But remember, if you're watching the beginning of the show, remember when I talked about the whole German culture I don't get? Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. This is German culture. All right. I'll just leave it at that because this thing's long enough. Thanks to Coronaville, our intrepid Washington Post reporter finds himself in the company of his children, who must stay at home because they can't be shipped off to the nanny this gentleman supposes is the best master of the directions his children's lives could potentially take. What's shocking about this person's take on unschooling, which is coming, is this is an education writer. One who seems to know a bit about unschooling, citing a couple influential personalities in the movement, so he has no excuse for the fake information he disseminates. Given this man's background in education and his familiarity with unschooling, this statement reveals the true nature of the article, such as this, written to sell bad ideas, not relate the writer's authentic beliefs. For if this writer claims to have this knowledge of education, unschooling, then he's revealing that all of his experience was for naught. Now, of course, it doesn't reveal this at all. It reveals the nature of the writer as an operative, a tool. Now, the caveat being, it might be a totally unwitting tool. That's a long story about how and why that would be. Reveals the nature of the writer as an operative, a tool for a machine that wants your children stuffed into large-scale systems serving cubbyholes, assuring the families of the people of power continue to have their reduced humanity to serve their wants and needs. Until 3 weeks ago, my 3 grandsons attended a public elementary school, a 10-minute drive from the house where their grandmother and I live. Whenever they visited us before the pandemic, they followed the Holt model of doing pretty much what they wanted. That meant online games, most of them on websites sanctioned by their school district. I don't even get that. Okay. That is just so... That's what that is. That is sickening. And cartoon videos. The man says cartoon videos. The man says cartoon videos. First of all, the man is comparing disingenuously leisure time with self-education time. And he would know this if he actually knew anything about unschooling other than the name of the first person to advocate for unschooling. I should note, however, and this is important, this is an important divergence. that unschooling has been the normal method of education among human children for the majority of our existence. Systemic, institutional educational systems that shifted the end goal from preparing individuals to live lives of their own choosing to making individuals useful to the systems controlled by a select few of the wealthiest and the most powerful among us are relatively new to the human experience, with some ancient models occurring now and then. Sparta looking at you, bruh! But, and I say that with contempt. But the overall dominant method of education still primarily, they were far more similar, at least to unschooling, than anything approaching the very Prussian authoritarian model of education America currently utilizes. And there's a lot of caveats and gray stuff that I would want to describe that if I added would probably add 5 more pages to this. So I know that anybody listening to this, there's a lot of stuff to say there that I can't, just don't have the space. Second of all, even if he was describing intentional education time for these grandkids of his, he would be revealing what a horrible facilitator he was. Unschooling is not kids do whatever they want and we go ahead and call that education. Unschooling involves parents who must be part of the process as guides, as facilitators, as providers of accountability and counsel. Now, he describes a lazy man with no serious regard for his grandkids' education if he is describing his process as in an unschooling endeavor. His idea of unschooling essentially is, I just make sure that the websites are school district approved. Oakley dokleys, we're watching the cartoon videos right now. But he's not. He's using leisure time by his grandkids to slander, demonize, invalidate unschooling disingenuously, deceptively, coercively. He's writing I'm being hyperbolic here, but still. He is writing a terroristic assault against unschoolers in general. And I'm sure he knows exactly what he's doing, because the orders have come in. Crush the unschooling talk, else kids might not want to go back to school when this whole thing is over. Yeah, he writes more like a government operative, an agitprop terrorist, than a journalist seeking to honestly and transparently share their thoughts and opinions with their readers. And as an unschooling parent myself, you can sense the triggers, right? I could see through these lies. And I've been facilitating my daughter's own unschooling efforts for the past 2 years. Unschooling is not without structure unless your child works best without structure. Most kids prefer measures of structure, though. Unschooling is about giving your child the best opportunities to learn the way that they learn best, with your guidance, facilitation, and yes, even direction, but minimally. And my daughter, by the way, my daughter really misses her friends because my daughter is unschooled. She belongs to 2 different groups that she meets with weekly, so she's out 2 nights out of the week. She's going to 2 different groups. One group is a mix of kids and adults, and one group is all kids. And she regularly goes to the houses to visit her friends who go to a local school here. She's involved in all of their lives. She goes to football games. She's very active. She's unschooled. And she misses the socialization that she had before. So I just want to add that in there as well. But that is irrelevant to the ultimate point that I'm going to be making here. But just for the folks that maybe don't know anything about unschooling, I just want to add that element to it. Unschooling, my daughter, for instance, she actually likes a certain level of structure. So we have, and by the way, just in case she wants to go to college, because of that, we also we structure and we document her work so that we can use those as college transcripts in case she wants to go to college. I hope she ends up not having to go to college, but I want her to have that option. So and she appreciates. She likes the structure. If she didn't, I would give her less structure. I basically come in when I think I need to come in, and to the degree to which I see her naturally evolving and learning, and especially where I see that she's getting the essentials, the essential life skills, I let her go. And where I see issues, as a matter of fact, this year, for instance, I chose to. There's one course that she absolutely had to take, and we've already gone through it. It was just the first half of the year, and that course was about basically cognition. It was a course. It was a college level course on the great courses, types of courses, and it taught her to understand how her own mind lies to her. She's 15, by the way, but she's smart. Well, I will say that she's at least advanced intellectually. So this is a good course for her to take. And she didn't want to take the course. She wasn't even thinking about it. But I felt like this was an essential skill that she needed now. So I do intervene, and many unschoolers parents, they do intervene to degrees. Now some are a little bit more absolute. I don't follow that path at all. But on the main, this is not unschooling. I mean, for most of us. So he's not even coming anywhere close to depicting what unschooling is. Unschooling is essentially about giving your child the best opportunity to learn as organically and in as self-directed a manner as possible the things your child wants to learn, as opposed to following cookie-cutter flowcharts for when and where children need to learn this subject or that subject. But it's not about extremes. It's not either or is regarding direction, regarding, if you will, parental intervention. If the child is not actually taking the unschooling time to actually learn, it's about creating as much opportunity as possible to allow your child to self-direct their education. And it's not about leaving your child to go wherever they might go, come what may. And unschooling parents largely have an end goal: to equip their children to self-learn in any situation they find themselves in, to provide their children the resources they need to further develop the areas in life they are seeking to develop, to transfer the useful value of exploration and discovery we parents wish our children to hold dearly for the rest of their lives, to stand on their own thoughts, their own ideas, and not passively accept whatever thoughts, ideas, people of means and power find more useful to their selfish needs than to the needs of the children they hope to become manifestations of these human reducing ideas. Ideas our public schools push for every day across America. Well, until now. In other words, schools push for every day across. In other words, parents want children to be equipped to own their thoughts, their actions, and figure out how to maximize their opportunities to satisfy their own preferences, as opposed to parents that mostly fill America today, parents who mostly want their children to reflect their own thoughts, their own presuppositions. And it's not their fault. They were filled with assumptions as children before they ever had chances to realistically challenge these assumptions. And so the assumptions were transferred that life is good when we reduce our children through the Prussian authoritarian school model, even if that model flies in the face of the alleged underlying principles of Americanism, individual liberty. Now, this is the real rub this government agent has with unschooling. He doesn't trust humans to be something he doesn't approve of, actual self-owned agents of independent thought. Or he's just collecting his paycheck for doing his agitprop work, or both. This is the real reason public schools exist: to assure the perpetuation of socio-cultural imposition on the next generation, so that they too will accept the reduced human status our current system requires in order to continue to support the wealthiest and most powerful among us, who write these laws, these regulations, these movies, these news articles that are designed to reduce humanity for the sake of the few. The article later goes on to cite how much kids miss schools right now, and many of them do. Why? They miss school because school is the place where they can safely engage with people only of their own age who are mostly like themselves. They can perpetuate the adversarial nature of parent and child that public schools encourage and facilitate by isolating age groups so extremely in the tiny boxes they shuttle these kids into. The government agent claims the kids just miss their friends and the drama and intrigue of all that. He also claims they miss the teachers, which I would wager is far and away the exception, not the rule. In essence, his anti-schooling propaganda piece boils down to, they need socializing, as if we can only create opportunities for kids to socialize with other kids through a oppression system. I can actually attest that that's not true. The false equivalency is strong in this one, as is the case for propagandists in general. Unschooling prevents kids from being isolated from other age groups and family members, allowing for the perpetuation exaggeration of the adversarial nature of parent and child in today's America. And this is a problem for government agents who seek to continue to create dependence on large-scale systems like government, like public schools, like the megacorps. These kids are being trained to dedicate the rest of their reduced human lives to serve. From the article, unschooling advocate Pat Faranja defined the movement as allowing children as much freedom to learn in the world as their parents can comfortably bear. That was their quote. Now this part was back to me, and I just wanted to note that was that's what he chose to highlight. Now, what he reflects is basically parents are uncomfortable with their kids being allowed to do whatever they want, but this is not really what this is. There's something so much more profound going on here that he has no access to. That comfort part, it has to do with surrendering yourself in your child, of resisting the all too human powerful urge to assure your child has your same values and beliefs. What I seek to do is to give my child her fair chance to come to her own conclusions. Now I have to, in a sense, you can't avoid exchanging value with your child, passing on value to your child. Just that alone is passing on value. But I mean at a much more existential, granular level. Even when we're talking about faith, I am a Christian, and I believe fully in Christ, and I make no bones about that. And I also, I pray almost every day that my daughter is ultimately come to Christ. But there was a brief period of time where I would say that I was coercing my faith upon her, but after such a point, I wouldn't necessarily word it that way, but you could make a case for it. You could make a case for it. I would argue against it, but you could make a case. But on the main, my decision has largely been that she gets witness to Christ almost every day, just in terms of the way that I talk about things. God is the center of a lot of my thoughts, so it comes out. So but outside of that, I don't try. I've always told her she needs to stand her own understanding. She needs to know Christ on her own terms, and I can't convert her there. I can't mysticalize her there. She must come to know Christ on her own terms, or she doesn't know Christ. And so that is the hardest part, because that's the part where I most want to guarantee the outcome, so to speak. But I can't even do it on that area, and I'm using that area because that is the most important area for me as far as my daughter is concerned. But I have many other existential areas that I also let go of, in the belief, for me, that it is in my best interest to perpetuate a spirit of consensuality. If the only real, the most fundamental value that I hope to transfer to my daughter ultimately is consensuality at the heart. To come to a pragmatic or moralistic, whatever way you get there, to come to consensuality in your heart. And if you come to consensuality in your heart, I, for one, that believe that that is actually the seed of God himself, however you want to term that. So that bears fruit of its own accord. So let me continue with this. Unschooling is not unresponsibility. It's actually far more responsibility than making lunch for your kids and sending them off to agents who have legal obligations to assure your child accepts the reduced human version of reality these schools and the corporate states they really serve find useful to perpetuate in your child. They primarily serve their own petty, self-serving interest, not the interest of your child, though most of them authentically don't understand or believe this reality. Unschooling means you are the one that engages with your child as they complete their work. You provide the direction they need to balance out the pursuit of the preferred versus the pursuit of the necessary. Like making sure your kid is able to read or to do math or certain things. I'll leave you to decide what they are. After a couple of weeks, kids across this country are most likely missing school because they are lonely. They are hardly used to even spending time with themselves, let alone people that aren't in their exact age group. They are shell-shocked. The only life they knew is gone, and it's replaced by some vague sense of unschooling, which is not unschooling at all, but parental cluelessness. Parents who themselves have little time to even understand the world they send their kids into or how to get them out of that reduced human world. When people are in jail for long periods of time and they get released, it is not uncommon for them to actually miss jail, and for some of them, they're incentivized to commit crimes because they want to go back. Imprisonment, which is what the Prussian authoritarian model is, has some comfort benefits like security, certainty, and ability to relax your own responsibility for your life's development and place it lazily in the hands of others. This is the pain these kids are experiencing. Not the pain of a wonderful experience they've lost, but the pain of a secure prison that allowed them to continue to not take responsibility for the thoughts, the assumptions in their heads. So the kids come home and are left to their own devices because parents have grown up in a land in which it is drilled into you that not only do you not need to know how to educate your own kids, you'll be considered a fringe libertarian or other loon if you dare imagine you should. Parents in America largely view their education contributing roles as paying taxes and assuring their kids get to school every day. Leave the creation of the mind to the experts, the ones who are motivated more by the needs of the system they serve than the child the system allegedly, that's a lie though, serves. If this little experiment drags on for months, years, as some say it might, and I'm not in that camp, but I could be wrong, well, it would be interesting to revisit this government's agent's article, maybe even the agent himself, and ask him how's that unschooling sucks thing going now. Why do I say that? As this prolongs, parents will, through necessity and maybe boredom, find themselves engaging in the process, and the kids will find the freedom this government agent interprets as being merely the power to be lazy and undirected. That freedom is not freedom of action, but freedom of thought. A freedom that creates responsibility on the owner, the claimer of that freedom. You cannot be free in your own thoughts if you have not taken ownership, knowledge, understanding of those thoughts, what they are, and why you have them. This is the freedom of unschooling. A freedom that allows parents to find ways to get their kids access to the resources, the people they need to develop in their way, not in the way of a state or a church or a corporation. I suspect as Coronaville goes on, the longer it goes, the more kids will discover just how diminished the vast majority of their lives have been, thanks in large part to the Prussian authoritarian model of mandatory government education in our American predecessors decided to adopt back in the turn of the 20th century. For the kids, but no, for the military, for the factories, for the corporations, for the governments, not the kids. This emerging thought, should it happen, and it will, mark my words, if this continues for months and months, might create a whole army of self-owned humans who hardly be satisfied with the current arrangements we have between the people who designed us and the people who wish to design themselves, a number that is sure to dramatically increase as Coronaville trundles on. People like this man will be forgotten, maybe even laughed at, for being so tone deaf, so willing to sell out so much of his neighbors for a few shakes of a money bag. That's how I see it, folks. That's how I see it. I see the longer this goes, the more people will find ways to live and to thrive. They need to thrive, they need to have hero's journeys, and they will have them. And so things are already happening, and I've been covering some of those stories. The photographer that has people come in, do virtual photo shoots with him. My wife and daughter tonight, they're going to be going to practice tonight with their band that they're both part of on, oh wow, I can't remember the name of the app, whatever it's called, whatever, you know, that group chat thingy that lets all these people, yeah, they're going to do that. And my daughter's going to set it up, and yeah, they're going to do that. So there's going to be jobs that are going to start to emerge for people to start to fill these roles. You're going to see a whole new economy start to emerge, people, if the government lets it happen. That's the key. If it stays out of our way. We will find each other. We will exchange value, and we'll be able to get stuff and be able to pay Amazon to ship our crap to us. But we got to do stuff like extra special for the people, especially like even my wife eventually. She has to go back into this. And so for these people, like special protections, provisions, whatever, it's got to be, they got to be taken care of. They've got to be, the safety has to be of top of mind. You got to bring in more people if you have more opportunity. I mean, if I was a physically capable person, and I'm not right now, I would be probably trying to go out and maybe potentially get one of these jobs, because they're looking for people, or Amazon, they're looking various places. But there's a lot of people that are looking to undermine, well, I don't know. I won't get into that for now, because I've said more than enough here. So it's interesting times, folks, and I hope to cover it. I hope to cover it all and come out on the other side, and we'll see how right I was. Thank you very much for listening. I'm going to stop this, and then all right, there you go. I just want to make sure I stop, because and again, if you're watching this on the live stream or the replay of the live stream, I paused there to stop the recording, because as I'm creating the live stream, I'm recording segments, because, you know, I like to be multi-purposed as much as you possibly can. It really saves on production cost, significantly saves on production cost. So that's why you do it, folks. That's why you do it. So I want to thank everyone who watched the whole show with us. And I want to remind you, don't forget to tip your Freeqo at freeqo.com/tip. It's just a little place you can, I just have a PayPal thing. Just pay. You can pay me on PayPal. Pay me on PayPal. I don't know. Now whenever I say PayPal, now I think of people. And when I think of people, I think of Brie Larson, because she said, I just see people. There's like a lot of people that use that little thing all the time. So it's in the head. And so when now that's what happens. So don't forget to tip your Freeqo at freeqo.com/tip. And you can pay my PayPal. You pay my PayPal. You know, give me hundreds of thousands of dollars, because, you know, I'm worth it. I look good, and I think I'm selling it. I'm shaking the money makers. So spit out that cash, son. Y'all know y'all love it. Y'all know y'all love it. This is what you do. I think this is called manifesting. I don't believe in that stuff. I mean, I believe it works, and I believe there's reasons it works that are largely self-fulfilling, but they're very powerful in and of themselves, and I use them, but not in any kind of weird cockadoodle moodle poodle kind of way, because I'm not a cockadoodle moodle poodle kind of guy. And on that, I thank you very much. I bid you adieu.
Thank you for engaging with this material presented. As usual, remember your views, your suppositions do not make you subhuman, nor do they permit you to subhumanize others. No humans were harmed in the making of the show, and we extend no wish of harm on anyone who hasn't directly harmed or threatened to harm others first, no matter how reprehensible we find your views.
We'll see you in the next Freeqo Talks, where Freeqo attempts to talk about news without freaking out.